right, hi everybody, welcome to my kitchen. It's Monday, it is December 4th. You just watched the chicken soup video. Now we're going to actually start getting ready to make the chicken paprikash. But before we do the chicken paprikash, unfortunately, the chicken paprikash is served with dumplings. And the dumplings that I made previous, unfortunately, all had freezer burn on it. So I've got to make a fresh batch of dumplings. So for this recipe, you're definitely going to want to go back a couple of months to the dumpling video. And you're going to want to either make my grandmother's bread dumplings or my aunt's yeast dumplings. I'm going to do the yeast dumplings. They take a little bit longer, but they're softer dumpling and they're just as good with the chicken paprikash. Now it's going on 3 o'clock here. We have plenty of time to do the dumplings. They'll take about an hour and a half from start to finish. And the chicken paprikash only takes about 45 minutes to cook. So what I'm going to firstly do is I'm going to move my soup off to the side. And my soup's just going to cool. I'm also going to skim a little bit of the fat on it. There's still a little bit of fat that has kind of collected on the top. And you'll know the fat because it'll look stringy and stuff. And you just want to skim all of that out. You don't want any of that going in when you go to freeze your soup. And the nice thing with the soup also is if you let it cool naturally and then put it in your refrigerator overnight, usually the next day there is going to be that fat cap and you can discard that. And then you'll have all natural soup. So, like I said, this is going to take a couple of hours to cool down. Okay, so since I said I've got to make the dumplings, I'm going to make the dumplings really fast. But we're going to go over the chicken paprikash recipe. And for this recipe, you're going to need 1 stick of butter, 1 medium onion chopped, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of paprika. I use a little bit more paprika depending on the amount that I'm making. If I'm doing more than 4 breasts, usually it's 2 teaspoons. It's usually 1 teaspoon of paprika to each breast. You're going to need a half a pint of sour cream. And again, because I'm doing 6 breasts versus just 2, I'm going to use the whole entire container of sour cream. And then you want 2, 4, or 6 chicken breasts, depending on what you did. And we're going to do this in... We're going to do this probably maybe around 4:30-ish. We'll get that started. But let's get started on the dumplings. And the first thing you need to do is make a sponge. Now, I'm going to double this dumpling recipe, so I have some dumplings for the Christmas holiday. So it's going to use a half a cup of warm milk, 2 tablespoons of dry active yeast, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 4 tablespoons of flour. I think you can get away with 2 for the sponge. So that's just for your sponge. And you want to make sure that the milk is warm, not hot. That's key to do this. So, I'm going to get the sponge going. I'll be back in a bit. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to my kitchen. For the moment that you have been waiting for, and I apologize, it's now 5:30. It took me 45 minutes to do all the dumplings that I needed to get done. You are definitely going to want this recipe for to serve with dumplings. They could be bread dumplings, yeast dumplings. That's what you serve them on. I have 1 largish onion chopped. Now, depending on how many chicken breasts you do, you might want to do a little bit more onion. You might want to do, if you're not doing that many breasts, you want to do a little less. So, I have a cast iron skillet here, and you kind of want to use the cast iron with enamel pot when you do this. You can do it in a stainless steel. You just need to be a little bit more careful with the chicken, because if the chicken sets to the bottom of the pot, what can happen is it can actually stick to your pot, and then it can burn, and you don't want burnt chicken in here. So I'm looking around because I thought I took out 2 things of butter, which I did. They're over here. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take 1 stick of butter, and I'm going to fire up my stovetop. And I'm going to put the vent on low, so it might get a little bit loud here because my stove and my oven are on. And I have the dumplings covered. If you're making homemade dumplings right away to serve with the meal, you want to make sure that they're covered. And when you cut them, just put them on a cookie sheet and then cover them with aluminum foil. And what I do, and there are plenty of videos of you guys seeing how I do that, is on the cookie sheet itself, I put a layer of aluminum foil, then the dumplings, then another aluminum foil cover. So, and unfortunately, my last spatula burnt. Although I do have a couple in the background, but now I'm looking for. Oh, there it should go. You're gonna want either a spoon or a wooden thing. What you're gonna do is you're gonna melt the butter. And as soon as the butter is melted, you're going to go ahead and you're going to add your onions. And you're going to just lightly saute your onions until they're translucent. Or a light yellow. You don't want them to brown. You just want them to be a nice yellow color. Now, unfortunately, the chicken breasts that my husband had pulled out of the freezer are still frozen, so that's going to take a little bit longer to do this, but you guys will see what it looks like. And if you're doing a little bit less paprikash and not doing so many chicken breasts, you can actually probably get away with a half stick of butter. I think it adds a little bit more flavor to the sauce, so I do a whole stick. Now, if I was doing even more, you can even increase it if you're doing it for a large people or a lot of people. Increase the butter to a stick and a half to 2 sticks. So, the butter is just melting, and I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. Should look like that. And then, like I said, you're going to add 1 medium to large yellow onion. And you want to make sure it's a yellow onion, not a white and not a red. Although, I'll be honest, in a pinch, I have done this recipe with a white onion before. I've never done it with a red, but turn that off for now. You just want to, like I said, you just want to fry the onions until they're translucent. Now, when you cut the onions, you're going to dice them into dice or small pieces. You don't want them too thick and you don't want them too thin, because if you dice them too finely, what happens is they disintegrate, and then you've got nothing for your sauce. And it has been a while since I've made this recipe, so let me consult with my recipe card. Yeah, 1 stick of butter or a half, medium onion, You need 2 teaspoons of salt. So if you're salt conscious, about a teaspoon. And then you're going to need paprika. And it uses 1 teaspoon of paprika, but I think in the soup, when I started in the soup series, I said, you know, I used a little bit more than a teaspoon of paprika because you want that nice pretty color. I'm going to pretty much triple this recipe. So now your basis of your chicken paprika should start to look like that. And I'm just going to saute these onions for a few more minutes. They're actually starting to get translucent. Now what you're going to do after that's done is you're going to add 2 cups of chicken stock. You can do this with water, but if you do this with straight water and you do a chicken breast that has no skin on it, it's going to be absolutely tasteless. Hence why we did the chicken soup earlier. The earlier video was the chicken soup. So, sorry, I'm reaching over you guys. And I'm just going to take our chicken soup and I'm going to pour it right into the pot. So now it should look like this. Now what you need to do is submerge your chicken breasts. Now chicken breasts work wonderfully with this recipe. You certainly can use thighs if you're a thigh person and you don't like the breast. The breasts just are traditional for the chicken paprikash. And like I said, this is kind of frozen chicken, but they should cook fairly quickly in this. Now, if you have breasts from the soup that you've saved for the chicken paprikash, go ahead and use those. But since those are fully cooked, you're not going to use those until this is cooked for at least a half an hour. And if they're frozen, they might cook a little bit longer. It may take 45 minutes for this to fully cook. Now I'm doing a lot because my husband, this is one of my favorite dishes. This is actually my favorite, my grandmother's favorite, my mother's favorite was the chicken paprikash. So I'm doing more so that we have leftovers and I can freeze this. This does freeze beautifully. So let me wash my hands since I touched the poultry. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that your chicken is nice and covered. Now what you're going to do is you're going to bring this to a boil and you're going to boil it for 30 minutes. And you can cover it. You can cover it. If you cover it, however, what I like to do is vent a little bit so steam can escape. But you're going to want to check your chicken every 10 minutes or so that they're not sticking to the bottom. Because like I said, if the chicken settles to the bottom, it'll actually start to stick and it'll burn. So, once this starts to boil, and it's going to take a while for it to boil, I'll show you what to do next. Because the next thing of the chicken paprikash after half an hour is making the sauce for it. And it's a sour cream and flour mixture sauce where you're going to mix. And let me see if I've got the... You're gonna, unfortunately, I didn't write down how much. You're gonna add about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of flour, and you're gonna mix it with the sour cream. You don't want it to be so thick that it's cement, and you don't want for it to be so thin that it's a liquid. So, if you put too much flour in with your sour cream, you can always thin it out with a little bit of cold water. And I'll show you that once this has started to boil. I'll come back and I'll show you what we're going to do next. So stay tuned. Okay, hi everybody. The chicken paprikash is boiling and the breasts are starting to cook. So now if you are using a combination of chicken breasts that you didn't put with the soup. So if you have the breasts from the soup, now is the time to add it to the pot. If you're using fresh chicken breasts that weren't made when you made the soup, do those first and let them start to get cooked, because the chicken breasts you're adding that you did when you made the chicken soup, they're already fully cooked, so they don't need as much time. There's 26 minutes left. I let this start at about the 40-minute mark just because my breasts were a little bit frozen still. So I'm going to turn you guys around. And I'm going to grab the 2 chicken breasts from earlier this morning that we did when we did the soup. And I'm just going to add that. Basically, these are just going to heat up. So my chicken paprikash actually has 6 chicken breasts in it. 2 are going to be rather small because this was a smaller chicken. And I'm just putting that in there. And like I said, this recipe tastes much better if you use the basis of your chicken soup. That's why I always do more chicken soup than what a normal person would do. And if you have a good base, a chicken stock base, that's what you want to make your chicken paprikash in. So there's not much to show you, but I'm going to kind of show you what it should start to look like. And you want to make sure that your breasts are fully cooked, which is why they need about a half an hour to cook. And every now and then come down, just give them a little bit of stir to make sure that they're not sticking on the bottom. It's going to be more important when we get to the next step. And the next step we're going to do in about 15 minutes is where we're going to mix the flour with the sour cream. And we're going to add this to the sauce to thicken it, to give it a sour cream based sauce. So, and actually we could probably go ahead. Well, it's a little early. We'll wait for that. I'll be back in a few minutes for that and show you what to do with that. And then we'll be eating within the next 45 minutes. So stay tuned.